Scene 1, Shot 1. If you've had the fortune or misfortune of being born into a dysfunctional family, you will have encountered some or most of these truths. You found it almost impossible to relate to anyone in school, and as a consequence, ended up trying too hard to fit in. One or both of your parents had extramarital affairs, and the indifference with which they carried on with their lives made you realize that marriage ain't shit. You ended up growing up with an unrealistic idea of love until you realized that love ain't shit either. You have almost no family pictures. None that can be seen hanging on your house walls at least. You despise the fact that your father is a raging alcoholic. That was until you grew up to be one and then understood that he's just a deeply troubled man. The general consensus among teachers during parent-teacher meets was that you were an exceptionally bright student who was just wasting his potential. You knew they were right, but the idea of revolting against authority was much more appealing than good grades or excellence in sports or whatever. Your idea of personal hygiene differed from what was the norm, probably not in a very healthy way. You grew up with a massive inferiority complex under an exterior cover of an equally massive superiority complex. Your parents arguing in the other room had taken such an unsurprising form that you saw it more as an opportunity to take a cigarette break without the possibility of getting caught, rather than letting it be another addition to the list of traumas that your parents had unknowingly inflicted upon you. You liked to get yourself into trouble just so you could have another instance of sympathy or criticism or anything at all directed at you just to remind yourself of your existence. The satisfaction from it seemed to wither soon enough when you understood that no one gives a shit about anything but themselves. You grew up to master the art of philosophizing mundane crap to justify the metaphorical walls you have built around yourself to comfortably pursue a life of isolation and denial. My father died 4 years ago. Left for good. I envy him sometimes.
Till when are we expected to endure all of this? And I don't speak of the global crisis which began not more than a few months ago. I speak of the crisis that has plagued all of humanity for centuries. The curse of being human. The feelings and the basic instincts which victimize you to the point where you are left with no choice but to put on a facade, lest you be shunned for being a thinking individual with unanswered questions. Ask no questions. Follow the crowd. Pursue the ultimate goal. Pursue happiness. The much coveted happiness, which you will never be good enough to reach out to, because it did not fucking exist in the first place. Make no mistake, I'm not depressed. Not in the traditional way depression is understood. But I refuse to be fooled by the cool enthusiasm with which things are said around here, as if the basic foundation isn't messed up. Maybe the problem lies in me, demanding realistic and consistent logic from something as convoluted as life, trying to confront the source of these feelings. Whatever it may be, my friends, this ends right here. And remember, the ones to be feared the most are the ones who preach happiness.
Cut! No. You have to reflect complete indifference about the whole thing. Your expressions cannot show that you're having second thoughts about killing yourself.
What bullshit! No 15-year-old thinks or talks that way.
Well, do you have a single iota of understanding of what neorealism is? What surrealism? No. Didn't think so.
I'm 15.
Well, then I'm not going to get into petty arguments with you regarding my art, okay?
You're such a snob.
I'm going to be a big filmmaker someday. Though I'm dangerously close to the realization that getting to hear stuff like films are a reflection of the society or photography's truth, cinema is truth 24 times per second is exactly the kind of half-assery that makes me want to seriously consider writing as a choice of career.
Yesterday, it's 6 kilometers from...
I mean, why pretend that films are a reflection of the truth of society or life or whatever? Movies aren't half as complex as life. You expect your movies to have context, introduction, conclusion, a well-defined conflict, consistent characters, emotional catharsis, approachable philosophy, convenient placement of colors and symbolism, and basically the exact inverse of everything that constitutes life. I mean, in life, when you're confronted with a situation which you have no control over, you're probably gonna say, well, that's life, and then continue to live anyway. But you're probably never going to sit through an unapproachable film with the same Zen mindset, except maybe for the occasional art house cinema critic who,
Yes,
for all we know,
but
is
it's
as
bigger and
clueless
better.
as the rest of us.
Let me take you guys on a tour.
Anyway, man, I have too little faith in my own sensibilities to be saying such things with so much assurance in my voice. I mean, I hope you won't take it the wrong way when I say that I feel like I don't even know you anymore. You know? And this feeling, it's not a comforting one at all. I feel you, but you should have known that you were headed for some serious psychological bruising when you began lying to me. Both of us seem to agree on one thing at least, that 99% of the things that happen in our lives have nothing to do with us. The rest 1% consists mostly of the choice to accept or deny that quality of the other 99. I seem to be having troubles dealing with that 1%, accepting the fact that it's not up to me to engineer how my life turns out. But yes, the man in the mirror was right. Things started to go completely fucking sideways when I stopped being honest to him. And it's not out of a compulsion to lie that I ended up this way. It's just that some truths are simply too hard to accept. That I have lost the ability to feel anything at all. That it's beyond me why at 23 I still depend on my mom for money when my career is all I really think about. That I grew up despising my father's personality and yet he comes out in me in these little weird ways sometimes. That my entire set of interpersonal associations consist of people who either don't care about me or consider me insane. That the ones who consider me insane might just be right, even by clinical standards. You know, when you're in a public space and then someone farts, but then everyone's gotta pretend like it didn't even happen, just to preserve the cool fakeness of the whole setting from degenerating into complete chaos. It's almost as if these uncomfortable truths are the fart and my conscious mind is the public. It's day 61, and I've started to look like I've had nothing but cake all my life. Most people I know seem to be ridiculously close to losing their minds. And the fact that it's not even questionable to me that I have zero empathy towards their cause is really fucking questionable at this point. Sometimes the point of suffering is not to alleviate it, but to cry with a high pitch in order to be heard. It doesn't really matter who the listener in question is. Can you really blame a man? Fuck. Can you really blame a man for wanting some clarity as to where he's headed? You know, there's only one thing worse than not believing in anything at all. And it's not knowing what you believe in. You seem to be a pretty credible source of advice on this kind of stuff, you know? With that perpetual smile on your face. So tell me, man. Give me anything at all. Tell me, you son of a bitch! It's almost 11 minutes into the film, and about time the audience starts expecting a cohesive conclusion that ties the film together and stuff. I find myself utterly incapable of doing so. Quoting Philip Larkin at this point seems about as close as I can get to fulfilling that purpose. They fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with faults they had and add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old style hats and coats who half the time were soppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man. It deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can. And don't have any kids yourself. I unquote.